Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. In this video we will talk about the center line and what I use it for. When I start out sculpting, one of the first things that concerns me is the center line. Here is my center line drawn out for you in red so it's easy to see. I divide the center line into two parts, one for the pelvis and one for the rib cage. It will always run through the center of these two bony masses, the pelvis and the rib cage. The center line changes angle usually right below the sternum, right here. The center line represents the spine, but it's a slight simplification which I find helps us out a lot in the beginning, making what is already a hard thing a lot simpler to do. You'll also see a horizontal line in this image representing the width and tilt of my pelvis, and I will make a separate video where I talk about this and what this is for. Here's a picture of the back showing the center line. The center line must be connected from front to back, so it's the same on the front and the back. And here's the angle break. It's quite subtle on this sculpture. Here we're a little further along with the sculpture, and the center line is still divided in two, and the angle break is right here at this horizontal line. I use my center line to make sure my sculpture has solid structure. Now this means that the sculpture doesn't have an asymmetrical ribcage or pelvis or contours. So to accomplish this, I check that my contours are symmetrical to my center line by drawing a 90-degree line from my center line to my contour. And again, 90 degrees in the other direction. I should have symmetry on both sides of my center line. Above the angle break in my center line, I need to do the same thing. Still 90 degrees across, and everything should be symmetrical, or at least very close. So I need symmetry on both sides of my center line, always 90 degrees across. So I have to pay close attention if I'm measuring from above or below the angle break, because this changes what the 90 degrees of that horizontal is, of course. Okay, not only do I need symmetry in my widths on both sides of my center line, every angle break in my contour should be more or less 90 degrees across from each other, like this. This is because what causes these angle breaks in the contours are forms attached to one of the two bony masses that the center line runs through, the center of the pelvis and the ribcage. So if they're attached to one of these two bony masses, it stands to reason, and what little anatomical knowledge that I have, that they would be attached in similar fashion on both sides of the body. Again, this changes at the angle break of the center line. This is where a little knowledge of anatomy can be quite beneficial, but just knowing this little trick should help you out a lot in creating sculptures that no one would call the police on if they woke up and started walking around. So the center line is clearly an important element in how I sculpt, but now let me show you how stupid simple this kind of can be actually, and how important the center line really is. As we've discovered, the center line needs to be in the center of our two bony masses. There needs to be symmetry on both sides of the center line, not only in mass, but also in the angle breaks that make up our contour. Internal information or forms are a big part of sculpture as well, or at least the way I sculpt. And just like our contours and our angle breaks, the internal information needs to be located symmetrically 90 degrees across from the center line. As you can see here, these two forms are 90 degrees across from each other in accordance with our center line. Same is true for these two forms. And the same is true for these two forms, although they belong to the bottom part of our center line, so they sit at a different angle than the form above that belong to the top part of the center line. So it's important when using the center line to identify which part of it, the rib cage or the pelvis, we are using. In many sculptures, it would be a lot clearer than on this sculpture, which doesn't have that much movement in the center. So this is all nice, but there is an area where the spine does bend, so it's not like one single angle break. And remember that the center line is just a simplification, a conceptual idea that we use to make the process easier for ourselves. In this area, the angle breaks in form can be a little difficult to figure out, and our simplified conceptual center line doesn't work as well. It's important to keep in mind that first and foremost, I observe from the live model, and concepts like the center line and any other anatomical rule for that matter come second to that. However, the process is already hard enough, and whenever you can find a conceptual idea that you can employ and that works with the model that you work with, I say go for it, use it. Thank you for watching this video, guys. I am going to make a couple of more of these describing other anatomical rules and other concepts that I employ while sculpting. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button, and if you want to see more, hit the subscribe button. And you can also check out my Patreon page. There's a link in the description below if you want to learn how I sculpt. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.